So welcome to let's say, inspiration for doing a preliminary retreat. And although I know some of you might be, or let's say in the retreat that you planned, you might be doing a mix of things. So the standard preliminaries are prostrations, Vajrasattva, then Guru Yoga and Mandalas. So again, the way you organize that is your own decision. What I'd like to talk about is the root of that. What's really important, especially with prostrations or with Vajrasattva, is that it's not penance. It's not some like I've been bad and I need to be good or something like that. That's not Buddhist at all. In Buddhism, the root of who we are is our Buddha nature. And our Buddha nature is pure and clean. It's never been defiled. And all we want to do is to tidy up the surface of who we are to make ourselves more accessible to our Buddha nature. So that's the concept. So when you look at the preliminaries, especially the first two, which are considered for purification, they're called the purification of that which is an obstacle. And the obstacle is, of course, our previously accumulated past karma. And so so you can do it in two ways. Again, it's the example of a cup half empty or a cup half full. In the cup half empty, it would be that I don't want these interferences to be in the way of my attainments. And so therefore I do prostrations and I do the Vajrasattva practice. So the awareness is that, I have some obstacles, some lackings, and I'd like to remove them. Again, it's not penance, which is like I'm bad. In one way, you could say when one has guilt, it has a double negative. You have on one side that okay, you did something inappropriate, like you were angry with somebody, or you hurt somebody, or you killed something, or whatever. And then the second part of guilt is, oh, I'm a bad person. So you have two things to purify. You have to purify the thing that you did a negative action. And the second thing is you have to purify the fact that you think that you're a bad person. So that's completely un-Buddhist. In Buddhism, you could say we were unskillful, we didn't understand properly, but we're not bad. Never were we bad. We were just, we had misunderstandings and were pushed by our delusions. So in the cup half empty version, never are we seen as bad. We're just seen that we were deluded. We had illusions that somehow that particular practice might be useful, or that particular activity we did might be useful. So first off, in regards to the purification techniques, then one is to remove obstacles. The prostrations is for very heavy karmas, so particularly physical karmas where you might have killed or damaged somebody, or whether in this or in previous lives, because remember, we are a Buddhist. And if we look at the nature of history, for example, I was born in 1950. It's quite conceivable that I was involved in the World War II, because it's only 4 or 5 years after the war finished that I took a rebirth. So that's possible. Let alone nowadays, there's wars and violence in all sorts of parts of the world. So it could be in your previous rebirth you have accumulated some having killed people, whether it's World War II, World War I, or some violence in your own particular country. So that being the case, prostrations purify both this and past lifetimes. Now, that we don't maybe know that we have some past lifetime karma, so that's why when you do the prostration in your attitude, you feel very much that like whatever karma that I've accumulated, this or in previous lives, understood or seen or not understood or unconscious, may all of these be purified. And so therefore the prostration, as they say, it's for more heavy karma, and so that's why it involves your body, physically doing a prostration, but also it involves your speech, so you actually chant or say the words of the Buddha. So for example, the praise of 35 Buddhas, and then finally your mind, which is the intention to become so you be free of your obstacles. Again, that's that style of motivation. There's also the cup is half full. And in that case, both techniques do accomplish their goal. But the half full is much more, I'm inspired by the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I'm inspired by the 35 Buddhas. I'm inspired by my gurus. I'm inspired by Buddha Shakyamuni. I'm inspired by the medicine Buddhas. And how would you be inspired? Well, by appreciating their qualities. So that's why it is important to study, that you have an educated understanding of enlightenment. For example, Buddha Shakyamuni, according to the history is he accumulated merit over 3 countless aeons, which just means in every rebirth he was spiritual. Every rebirth he was properly motivated. He had good intentions. He had bodhicitta. And so when you do a prostration of that, you're doing a prostration to his bodhicitta and to his determination. So it's an inspiration. It's a cup half full, and you're going to try to make it more full. Okay? But in both cases, they do purify, because if you become very, let's say, inspired and you're doing a prostration to the beauty and the glory of an enlightened being or the great bodhisattvas, of course, obviously the negative things that you might have accumulated in the past have lose their power, because you no longer believe in them. You no longer believe in getting angry or being manipulative or being jealous or being competitive or killing or stealing or whatever you might have done. Okay, so that's first off with prostrations. It's a much more deep physical purification. And Lama Zopa has often said that when you do the prostration when your body is down, it says as many atoms as your body covers of the earth, that many millions of negativities are purified. So there is an element of sort of like inspiration and faith in that. But the point is to just feel it is very positive. So whether it is cup half empty, cup half full, in both cases, it's very positive to do a prostration. You really are eliminating, you really are accumulating, okay? So that's prostrations. If you shift over to the Vajrasattva, it's more subtle purification. And that's where like you sit in one posture, you're not doing a lot of, doing no physical movement and such. And then you're reciting the mantra. Again, I have on my YouTube channel both of the commentaries to Vajrasattva and to the prostrations to the 35 Buddhas. Okay, and so you can look at that. I'm thinking I'll do another one just to show how to do a physical prostration physically, like the actual movements of your body and such. But for right now, those two would be very, very worthwhile if you're going to do this, a retreat of a mix of the preliminary practices. Okay. So that's the second one is more subtle. And the important thing, though, is your motivation. You have what's called the 4 opponent powers. That is that I regret, wish I hadn't done that. I'm inspired by Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I'm doing the purification, which is Vajrasattva, my body being filled with nectar. And at the end of it, I'm dedicating to be positive or to repeat my previously accumulated negativity. So again, it's important that you do study the 4 opponent powers. But obviously, if you do just have intention, you're going to accomplish something. But you can be more qualified, more, let's say, professional about it, really understanding the dynamics of your mind. In that case, also studying a little bit about karma would be good. There's subjective motivation, objective, who you're doing it to, who you're involved with, the way you do the action. And then motivation. There's lots of factors about karma which are really interesting, because karma is the way we've created ourselves. Karma is just action. Literally, it translates as action. So the way that we've acted in the past, by the way we've been motivated, has created who we are in this present moment. So if we've been generous, we don't have much trouble with money. If we've been virtuous, that is having good ethics or principles, we don't have many problems and many issues. For example, illnesses or things being stolen or people lying to us or bad quality friends and such like that. So again, this is like the quality that we have. Being patient, it says that you're more attractive if you're a patient individual. So anyway, this is the karma that we have from both coming from previous rebirths and in this rebirth, the way we act, create who we are. So again, in doing both the prostrations or Vajrasattva, educate yourself a little bit. Now, don't get overly caught up in the intellectual side. Try to always take the intellectual or scriptural teachings and apply them to yourself. Look at the the psychology of them, how your mind might really react to them and such. So those are some things to take into consideration for those two. The next two are called accumulation, and so therefore the first one is Guru Yoga. Now, Guru Yoga, there's a couple of different techniques. The more simple version is called the 100 Gods of Tushita. There are different lineages, of course, of teachings. The extensive Guru Yoga practice is called Lama Chopa or Guru Offering, but it's quite large. Certainly the basic 100 Gods of Tushita is quite accurate. And then what's really nice is it does have, the 5-line prayer, Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of balance, compassion, Manjushri, stainless jewel of omniscient wisdom, Vajrapani, destroyer of marvelous forces, Sankapa, crown jewel of the Simolan pandits, Wilson, drop it to your feet, I pray. But in that you have then the 3, compassion, wisdom, and ability. That is Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and Vajrapani. And so when you do the practice, there are different visualizations you can do. I actually don't think I have on my YouTube channel the 100 Gods of Tushita, so I will make a video for that within the next week or two, so that it is available for you. Okay, so coming back to the Guru Yoga, why? Well, actually, if you've been following Jonas and Ghosh's Facebook pages and such, there's some very, very good quotes there. I think one from Dilbo Khyentse Rinpoche about Guru Yoga, one from anyway, it doesn't matter. So other gurus. And what it is that makes Guru Yoga special is it's to see that your teacher personifies a particular quality, and that makes it more close to you. I often think, and this is sort of another religion, but Christianity has a huge emphasis on Jesus Christ and all these stories about him. That's their Guru Yoga. So in our tradition, we have both, of course, Buddha Shakyamuni, and then we have the great yogis since then, Padmasambhava, Milarepa, Tsongkhapa, and Sempa, so many different gurus, and then down to the present ones we have right now, Dalai Lama, Zopa Rinpoche, Dilbo Khyentse Rinpoche, all of these different teachers. So all of them, even if you've not actually met them, if you feel something towards them, it gives you more power, gives you more capacity in believing in what you're doing. Now, there are 3 types of faith. There's what's faith is by inspiration, faith by admiration, and faith by educating yourself. The first 2 are good, but they're not as stable, because sometimes if you admire somebody, you could lose your admiration. Or if you're inspired by somebody, you could also lose that. But if you educate yourself well, you have a very solid understanding about why you're doing something. In the Tibetan language, faith is actually called yiche, which is a confident mind. So what you want is a confident mind in your Dharma practice. And how do you get that? By educating yourself, not relying on just blind faith or this sort of faith and devotion. Okay, so Guru Yoga is that. And what it really means is that you establish a very clear channel between yourself and your gurus to receive blessings and inspirations. And we shouldn't think of that like that's some sort of mystical thing. It's just that when you're in the presence of somebody, there's a lot more to be transmitted between yourself and that person. For example, when you fall in love with somebody, if that person's in front of you, the energy is much stronger, isn't it? Whereas if you're just looking at a picture or something like that, or if they're at distance. So in the same way, when you have a spiritual practice, you're putting, emphasis to being confident, being peaceful, being wise, being compassionate, and things like that in the presence of your teacher. Not that all teachers will personify those qualities equally, but some of them will. Some of them will personify depth of wisdom. Some of them will be very compassionate. Some of them will be inspiring. Some of them will have a great heart, love, and compassion. So look at your teachers, all the teachers you have as facets of your spiritual practice. So one teacher might give you a particular facet, another teacher another facet. Now, in the teachings, for example, of Atisha, it said that he had over 100 gurus, and he said, all my gurus are equal, they're all the Buddha, they're all Vajradhara, but then he did say, but of them all, Saralingba, who taught me Bodhicitta, holds a little bit of a special place. So we don't want to be judgmental of our teachers, but rather we can appreciate that some of them might touch us a little more than other ones, which is perfectly acceptable. We just don't judge the person. We just understand that maybe some teachers connect with us a bit better. But coming back to the main thing, that if you have a good commitment, and Guru Yoga is about commitment. And so what is your commitment? Well, it depends on the initiations you've received and actually your basic practice. So the commitment of having refuge, to the best of my ability, I will help. To the best ability, I will not cause harm. And the Bodhisattva commitment, my nature of my existence is, may I be of benefit for all sentient beings, and may I have an altruistic heart. For example, right now on my YouTube channel, there's the teachings of the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. So we've got some good commentary there about a realistic altruistic mind, not just some sort of like a fanciful altruistic mind. But anyway, that's coming in those teachings. Anyway, going back to it though, then again, my commitment to being a bodhisattva. Third, then, my commitment to my tantric practices, which would then include, for example, your 6-session Guru Yoga. Now, I've often said to you, be careful when you take initiations of what's the commitment, because you could end up with lots of commitments and then no time to practice. Well, I mean, although you might think, oh, my commitments are my practice, but you end up just reading them or getting through them because every day you've got to do them. So it's not beneficial. It's important that you have a nice, concise Dharma practice that you can really focus on. So that's why, for example, with both Lama Glenn and myself, and possibly other teachers, we just give the 6-session Guru Yoga. It's one page. You do it 3 times in the morning and 3 times at night, or if you're really busy, you just do it 6 times. And even there's ways to abbreviate that down to that 5-line 6-session Guru Yoga. I mean, if you're really intensively busy. But what you want is a good practice, and you want to every day have that sense of connection with your gurus, that you and they are all on the same path, going in the same direction. They personify it, and I'm emulating that, but I'm moving in that direction. So it can be very, very powerful. A friend of mine once said with Guru Yoga, he said that anytime he had a difficult moment, he would then say, well, what would Lama Yeshe do? And suddenly he'd have 5 or 6 options that he hadn't been able to think of on the basis of his own personality. But when he invoked his guru, he suddenly had options. So there's a real benefit of Guru Yoga, that you're getting more capacity. So Guru Yoga, very beneficial, and particularly the 100 Gods of Dushita is very nice because it does have Avalokiteshvara, Great Treasure of Boundless Compassion, Manjushri, Stainless Jewel of Omniscient Wisdom, Vajrasattva, Destroyer of Mara's Forces. It has the 3 principal qualities. And so when you do your Guru Yoga practice, which again, I'll do a video on that so that you have more details, more teachings, but it is emphasis on limitless compassion, clarity of mind, and an ability and power and capacity that are not easily overcome by some situation. And those are the 3 principal deities, and they're visualized on in the forehead, at the throat, and at the heart of the Guru visualization you have. Again, all of that's more in the details of the teachings, but understand Guru Yoga is really allowing you to have much better connection with your gurus. Now, I'll give you something that I personally have. I had this Lingam Rinpoche, who's right above me right here. He was my main teacher, and he was unbelievably special for me. And I had deep, deep faith in him. I mean, when I was with him, it was like being in a pure land, and states of consciousness were so vivid and so easy to understand. Okay, so I had deep faith in him. So when I would go to other teachers, I would just see Lingam Rinpoche as manifested through them. And so therefore, my faith that I'd already developed on one teacher could automatically be applied to other teachers. And therefore, I would be very receptive to their teachings. That's something that can be very beneficial for you. So it could be that maybe one teacher really touches you. Well, then, with all the other teachers you have, just feel that that other teacher is an emulation of the guru that you have the deepest feeling of faith with. And then you benefit and bless yourself. The only thing is be a little bit careful. We are in a degenerate age, and so be conscious of the fact that the real goal we want is to become more enlightened in our practice, not to, make money and help build big Dharma centers and make temples and things. I mean, if you want to do that, that's very, very good. But remember, your main practice is The main thing is your own practice, that you're a virtuous person, that you have stability, that you have patience, that you have wisdom. If you have those, then you can do all those other things. But if you get caught up with a teacher who's on a big agenda about creating some empire or something like that, be a little bit careful, because you end up getting caught up in their thing and you lose your own Dharma practice. And that's just a word of advice. There are a lot of people out there that want to establish Dharma empires. And so be conscious of the fact of I'm getting involved in that type of teacher or not. Again, I'm not criticizing, I'm just saying be aware of who you are as a practitioner. Okay, so that's the Guru Yoga. And then finally we have the practice of Mandala offerings. Now Mandala offerings, there's, well, let's say Tsongkhapa, who is one of our main teachers, he did it in a cave on a flat stone and used sand as his ingredients for the mandala. Now, again, if you want to, you can buy a fancy little plate that's for using for mandalas and has rings and a little thing on the top. That's if you do a full mandala offering. If you're doing the one which is a preliminary practice, it's normally comprised of 8 lines, 4 lines of taking refuge and 4 lines of offering the mandala. And in those 8 lines, then you accomplish the movements you need to make with the mandala. In the ingredients of your mandala, again, primarily it's actually your visualization, but you know, it said that you use rice as one, white rice. Then in that you can put some jewels and precious things that you like, or a little bit of some coins of, you know, some euros and some other, you know, coins that might come from other things, maybe a little piece of gold, a little piece of silver, things like that. You can put that into the ingredients. And it's another thing. And normally you have this all in a big cloth, so you're sitting cross-legged, or you can even sit in a chair if you wanted, but you need to sit where then the cloth sort of spreads out, so that when you're mixing all the rices and spreading it and things like that, they splash everywhere, but they all center on the cloth. They don't go all over the room, okay? Anyway, and then you hold the dish in your right hand, or sorry, left hand, and with your right hand, you first rub it 3 times to the right and 3 times to the left, as you say the refuge prayer. And the 3 times to the right is I'm taking out negativities and purifications. And it said this is the nerve of bodhicitta here. And so that's why you're using that part of your arm. So three times you go to the right, you're cleaning and purifying. Then 3 times you go to the left, and then you're putting in qualities and virtues. And you do that, as you say, the refuge prayer. So I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, the Sangha. From now until enlightenment, I work for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all beings be happy. So that is just said the 4 lines, okay? And you would have taken a little bit of ingredient, sprinkled it on the plate, and rub 3 times right, 3 times left with that prayer. Then you take another handful of rice and you do the mandala offering. And again, I can't remember it in English, but it'd be Sashi, Popi, Choshi, Meto, Tamri, Runchi, Wadi, Sangijing, Miki, Borgi, Chokonana, Show. Okay, so that's the 4-line prayer of mandala. Again, whatever it is in English. I mean, this land purified or anointed with saffron water, flowers, and incense, crowned by mountain, moon, sun, and moon. I offer to all the Buddhas, may also be free, something like that. Okay, so whatever the prayer is, then you do 5 heaps. So you take your handful, you put 1 in the center of your plate, which is Mount Meru, and then to the 4 directions, which you do, you do 7 things, sorry. So 1 in the center for Mount Meru, the 4 continents to the 4 directions, and then sun and moon, that's left and right. And then you hold the plate and you conclude the prayer. Then there's 2 things you can do. You can tip the plate towards you, which is, I would like to receive more positive, prosperous energy. Or you could say, I offer this, and you tip the plate away from you, and I offer it towards the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be free of suffering, the cause of being suffering. May they be free of hunger. May they be free of thirst, and may they be free of poverty and illnesses and whatever. So that's where you tip the plate out. Both sides are suitable, depends on your particular interest. So just to review that, you're holding in your left hand with a little bit of the offering substance. You take a little bit of offering, put it on the plate, 3 times right, 3 times left as you do the refuge prayer. Then you take another little handful, center, towards you, to your left side, farther from you, to your right side, sun and moon. And then you take a plate and you conclude the 4 lines of the mandala offering. You tip it towards yourself or you tip it away. And what you're doing now, that's the physical action. What you're really feeling is in your heart, you start coming out all the offerings. So you can have up in front of you, the Buddha, gurus, bodhisattvas, then around you, all sentient beings of the universe. And then you're just continually sending offerings to the Buddhas and the bodhisattvas and things that benefit all sentient beings. So you are basically creating this huge sense of prosperity that is, may everybody be free of causes and problems and lack. May everybody have good situations and health and wealth and prosperity and whatever it is. That's the visualization. So in your meditation, you enter into a meditation, you feel the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the Gurus are in front of you, you're offering to them because you greatly enjoy them, you love them, but you're also offering for all sentient beings, may they be free of any hindrance for their own prosperity and ability to be successful and such like that. That's the visualization, and then that's the movement of your hands, all of the prayer and stuff. Now, it takes a little bit of time to become familiar with it. Like, so you maybe, after you do about 50 or 100 of that prayer, those 2 prayers, then you're starting to be able to enter into your meditation and just focus on the flow of goodness coming out of you. Okay, that's the accumulation of prosperity. And it's said that Tsongkhapa did 3,500,000, I forget, millions. He did millions of mandala offerings. It said that he rubbed the skin off of his forearm because he was just using sand on a rock, But he did it so much during his retreat. He was in a retreat place called Wolka, and that was in a big cave. I think he was with 5 or 6 other monks, and then he was really intense. I think it was in a period of 3 years. He did 3,500,000 prostrations. He did 100,000 prostrations for every one of the 35 Buddhas. That's a pretty powerful practice. Then he did Vajrasattva, I don't know that. But then he did the mandala offerings. He did thousands of them, and that's why it said that the Gelugpa lineage was the most wealthy lineage in Tibet because of Tsongkhapa's accumulation of prosperity. Okay, so that's the mandala. And the Guru Yoga, of course, Tsongkhapa had many gurus. Primary guru was actually a Sakyapa Lama, and then he also had the Karmapa and Kargyu Lamas, and the Karmapa, the Karmapa, I think it was the 3rd Karmapa at that time. Maybe the 2nd was at the time of Tsongkhapa. He was actually the one that gave Tsongkhapa his novice ordination as a monk. Anyway, so he had many gurus, and so he obviously had very good Guru Yoga, and finally ended up having direct visions of Manjushri, and he could talk directly with Manjushri, which of course is the pinnacle of Guru Yoga practice, that even he could talk directly to the Buddhas. Milarepa also had that ability. He could go to the Pure Lands and talk with Amitabha and the other Ashkobi and the other Buddhas in the Pure Lands. So there are gurus that have those abilities. Okay, so there's the 4 preliminaries, 4 basic preliminaries. Again, however you organize your particular retreat, that's your choice. If it's like, for example, the 10-day retreat, maybe you do 2 days of prostrations, or you can do it this way, because prostrations, if you do too many, then you hurt your body. The rest of the retreat's in pain. So I would recommend, for example, if you did 35 Buddha prostrations, so I've described that in the text where you do 1 prostration for each of the name of the Buddhas. So that's 35 prostrations. Then you do the concluding prayer of that particular practice. Then you flip over and you do Vajrasattva, which then means you can sit there for 1 hour, 1 hour and 20 minutes or something like that. You do that. Then maybe you get up, you do a bit of, have a pee break or something. Then you come and do 35 Buddha prostrations again, just 1 set of 35 prostrations. Then you go back and you do Vajrasattva. So those are the first 2 or 3 days you do that. Then on the 4th day, you can still continue doing prostrations. So maybe every day you have 4 or 5 sessions of 35 prostrations. That's not a big problem. It's not going to hurt your body. And then you can drop on maybe the 4th day, you drop the Vajrasattva and you shift over to Guru Yoga. So you do 4 or 5 sessions of Guru Yoga a day, and then you're still doing prostrations and such. And then finally, towards the end, then you can start doing the mandala offerings, and you do that for 1 or 2 days, again with prostrations. You then can do Guru Yoga, and then in the Guru Yoga practice, before you dissolve the Gurus into you, you would then do mandala offerings to the Guru Yoga visualization that you have, and then you conclude. So there's like a 10-day retreat, breaking it into sections. So just to give you an example, but it's not saying that's what you should do. I'm just offering a suggestion. Okay, so that concludes what I wanted to share with you about how to do a retreat. I'm going to open it now if you'd like to ask questions, or if you have things that you've written in the chat, whatever it seems to, whatever you'd like to do. There's no chat right now, so any questions, please ask. Or are you all asleep?
No, we're not asleep. Thank you, Lamadhampa. There's something about the space that I've been wanting to ask. What do you suggest? I live in a shared flat. If I wanted to do a retreat, ideally I would get away from here. What should I do?
Well, if you're living with other people or just in a situation that's not very conducive, well, the suggestions would be you get up earlier than everybody. Just to give you a silly example, but right now I'm writing my biography about my time in India and such. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do that because after 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I think too many things are happening and I'm distracted. So I go to bed at around 9:30, 10. I get up at 4. So you could do something like that. Now, if you're living in the same room with somebody, obviously that's not going to work. Hopefully you have your own room that you can do your practices in. But that would be one suggestion, is that you just get up earlier than everybody. Or, again, depends on the people you're living with, whether it's family or friends or just people that co-rent a particular suite or something. Again, you could just, depends on who they are. You say, look, I'm in a bit of a retreat, I'm trying to develop myself, or I'm working on myself, whatever is the most appropriate wording. Because, for example, let's say you're a very Catholic family and then you're suddenly doing a lot of Buddhism. Well, you wouldn't want to say, oh, I'm going off and doing my Buddhist retreat, because it might make them upset. And then you've got negative energy. You step outside and they all look at you like you're strange. So you wouldn't want to say that to them. You would say something like, I'm studying for a big exam, enlightenment, or something like that. Leave me alone. And you have to be intelligent about what you say to people and such, okay? So that would be my suggestion, just you try to come up with a technique or a style or a schedule that would work for you according to your situation, okay? And on weekends, if you could, maybe you have some friends, or you can say one of your friends has an empty house or somewhere that you could go. So on Friday afternoon, you go off to their place in the forest or something. It's not too far away, granted. I mean, it's not like you want to drive for 5 hours to get there, but maybe you only drive for a couple hours and you can go and be in a more private place, and on the weekend you do your retreat. Again, there's just be flexible and be intelligent and be creative. One thing, it says, not sleeping, Lama, haha, thanks for this. I was wondering how we should use the mandala mudra. I usually offer with that in the visualization when I do the Guru Yoga rather than, well, if you did I don't disagree that you couldn't do you'd have normally your mala on your mandala, on your thing. You put your mala on over your fingers when you do the mudra of mandala offering. Yeah, that could work. You still generally said that you do refuge 4 lines, mandala offering 4 lines, and in that way you accumulate 100,000 Guru or 100,000 man offering, refuge prayer, and 100,000 mandala offerings. So that's one thing you could do. Again, if it just literally doesn't work for you to have a plate and the ingredients, okay. I mean, you're not doing something. Or to put it double the thing, you are doing something, so it is accumulating a merit. So that's good. I would not recommend really diminishing your sleep, and I'll give you a perfect example of that. And there's statistics on this, so it's not anything that I'm making up. People that don't get enough sleep end up being very susceptible to getting diabetes and all sorts of other blood pressure problems and lots of other things. And a perfect example of that is Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Now, I'm not criticizing him, it is he tried very hard never to sleep. And so, I mean, when I knew him back in India, when he was very young, he was like, when I met him, he was 25 and I was 20. So from even prior to that, he was like that. He just sort of tried to stay up all night, would read prayers and recite text. He would go unconscious sometimes, but then he'd come back and do that. Anyway, and he had all the diseases that were delineated by not getting enough sleep. So, I mean, if your body is really not that important, go for it. But, you know, if we have a long life, that's good and such. So I would just say, at least getting 6 hours a night sleep would be useful for you. Depends, of course, on the environment. But I'm just saying, don't think that not sleeping is going to be some great spiritual thing. Even though Buddha Shakyamuni said that the only aesthetic practice that Buddhists can do is some fasting, but it's not like completely lack of food, like only eating 1 meal a day fasting. And the second one was not sleeping. But in this case, remember at that time, there was no electric lights, and people were doing a lot of meditation. There was a lot of distractions. And so maybe when they went into a state of meditation at nighttime, they didn't sleep, but they basically were in meditation, which then fed the body. Actually, in the Tibetan medical system, sleep is considered a food. It's actually listed as a food, that if you sleep, you are nurturing your body. Anyway, but I'm off topic maybe. Let's just say, do sleep well, because then you'll be clearer and more capable. And if you don't have a plate in the rice offerings, okay, I'm not saying it's wrong, you know, so whatever works for you. Okay, so that's for Jack. Any other questions or commentaries?
Does our tradition recommend a special diet for an Ngondro retreat?
Well, one is eating lots of garlic, not so good, because your breath gets too strong, and then it's a distraction. Eating a little bit of you know, how you say, if you do white Tara practice, you should abandon eating meat, onions, and garlic, okay? But that's a white Tara retreat. Generally speaking, no, you can eat, meat or not eat meat. Again, eating too much garlic is not good because it makes your physical body has too much energy of the garlic. But, you know, I mean, you can take the garlic pills if you want to. I mean, then you don't have the garlic breath. But no, there's not anything specific with diet. You know, eat well, take care of yourself, have protein. There's lots of proteins which are not animal product. You know, I mean, not like dead animals like meat. But anyway, your choice. No, so there's nothing with diet. You can do what you want. Again, other teachers might say something. For example, in Chinese Buddhism, you should be a vegetarian. In Tibetan Buddhism or Mahayana Buddhism, you can be a meat eater, but be appreciative of the animal that died for you to be able to eat it. You know, do a little prayer for the animal that died. But again, that's a whole conversation. I think Odysseus and I talked about that in one of our previous videos. So, other questions?
Yeah, on a practical sense, how long should we be doing sessions each day? Should it like 8 hours, 10 hours, 6 hours?
Well, okay, if we're talking about a retreat where you're in a quiet place and you're able to do it all day long without distraction, be one session before breakfast, one session after breakfast, a break, another session before lunch. There's 3 sessions. Then you'd have a break after lunch till about 3 o'clock so that you can do other things that you want, read something, say your prayers that you have or whatever. Then another session around 3, another session around 5 or 5:30, another session around 7. So you could do up to 6 sessions a day, each session an hour and a half. Something like that would be a good way to do it. So that's the way I like to do retreats. The Tibetans can sometimes they'll do retreats where they do a 3-hour session, and I just find that's excruciating. I can't do that. That's personal. So for me, I like an hour and a half. So get up at 6 till 7:30, breakfast till 8:39, 9:30 till 10:30 a session, 11 till 12:30 a session, 3:30 to 5, 5:30 to 7, 7:30 till 9. or something like that. Again, it's your choice. If you have the capacity, then 6 sessions a day of an hour and a half would be good. If it's a little bit hard for you, 5 sessions a day of an hour and a half. Again, this isn't torture. It's the accumulation of merit and being positive. Okay, so don't abuse yourself or stress yourself trying to accomplish virtue.
Regarding the sessions, because it's going to be a group retreat, should there be one leading the recitation, the rest doing, for example, prostrations for each session, or should we recite as a group and somehow synchronize with our prostrations as well? I'm asking this question because it can be pretty tricky doing prostrations and synchronizing with the recitation as well. It is difficult.
Okay, well, the prostrations, I would recommend that it's a recording you play on a speaker. You know, like, I mean, and it's Deshin Shabada, Chambayan, Navazobe Sange Palgawa Shapala Chaselo, Deshin Shimba, Nambala Chaselo, Deshin Shaba Original Drola. You can do that as a recording, so everybody gets to do prostrations. At the end of the 35, you know, according to what I suggested, then you turn the recording off, and all of you together would recite the confession and the rejoicing part of the 35 Buddha prayer. So one person starts it, you know, like you know, all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, please pay attention to me. That would be the first person, and everybody else says, you know, I so and so from now on all the beginning rebirths that I've ever taken, blah, 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 you know, like everybody says it together. It is good that everybody recites because it's accumulation of karma. So, and you know, with positive attitude. So only the prostrations could be a recording of somebody who has a nice voice, but at a rate where you can get one prostration in for each of the 35 names. Okay, so it's not like done quickly. You know, and if you're really good, you memorize the 35 names. I mean, when I did it, I had to memorize the 35 names, but it wasn't, you know, anyway, it's in Tibetan, it's a little bit easier sometimes, but whatever. But it's because in the case of ourselves, you can have it as a recording, but everybody recites the confession and rejoicing part of that 35 Buddhas. When it comes to the Guru Yoga, you know, it's broken into things. You have been taking refuge, generating a visualization, and then the 7 branches of prayer. Again, one person just starts it, says, you know, I and all sentient beings, and everybody joins in again. So you have the accumulation of karma for your voice and such. Then when it comes time to do the mantras, you know, that Avalokiteshvara, great treasure of boundless compassion, or if you do it in Tibetan, you know, you may say, whatever you do, I tend to recommend doing it in English. That when you do that, then everybody does it quietly, so it's a meditation session. Or with Vajrasattva, you would do then do a not too long sadhana. Don't do a really extensive one, but not too long sadhana with Vajrasattva. Everybody recites that out loud together, and then when you do the mantras, everybody's in silence. And remember, you don't say those mantras out loud. You say them quietly to yourself. It's called sort of whispering. Okay, so you do that. And one thing, I remember I did a Tara retreat for 10 days in Mexico. And there was one lady that had a huge moa, and every time she pulled the bead, it was clack, clack, clack. I mean, it was just so frustrating. You know, everybody else had little moas, and they could just sort of move the beads without any noise. Anyway, I mean, we didn't say anything to the lady. It was just what she had to do. But yeah, be appreciative of other people's space, and don't sort of like. Like that'd be ridiculous, you know, be quietly to yourself. Like that, okay, so, you know, be a thing. So saying prayers as a group, very good. Saying mantras, no, you do that privately. With the mandala offerings, then you would do that quietly to yourself. So that, as I said, you normally do that, for example, in the 100 Gods of Tushita, the Guru Yoga practice, prior to dissolving the gurus into you, and after you've done a few of the mantra, the 5-line prayer to Svankapa or whatever, the Guru Yoga mantra, then at the end of that, then you could do mandala offerings. But you do that again a little bit more quietly to yourself. Now, obviously, there's going to be noise if people have the plates and things. There'll be no crashing, rub, rub, rub. But the thing is, everybody's focused on their own meditation. So that would again be quietly reciting it to yourself, the refuge prayer and Mandala offering prayer, but there would be noise. Okay, so those are my thoughts about that. Because saying prayers together is virtuous, and it is the accumulation of verbal karma. Other questions?
Do you have a video on the offering of the mandala with the rice?
Sorry?
Do you have a video on how to offer a mandala with the material of the rice?
No, okay, I will do that within the next 2 weeks, because I'll do one guru yoga practice on my YouTube channel and one of the mandala offering. And I'm very lucky, because when I was very young, Lama Yeshe personally gave me his mandala plate. I still have it. This is 50 years later. Okay. So anyway, I will do that too. So both of those will be done within the next 10 days. Okay, and I'll publish those, and then I'll tell you that I've published them. Okay. So that'll be something for preliminary practices. Okay. We're getting close to 1 hour, so I think that's good. So, I mean, if you have questions, you can write me privately and I can answer them, okay? So we have a good presentation of how to do the preliminaries, just in sort of an overview. You have the individual videos on my YouTube channel, plus you have other teachings, other books. There's lots of material to draw on. Mostly be inspired. One things I thought of when I was asked to do this, I thought, well, what was my original motivation? I mean, I did, within 2 years of becoming a Buddhist, I did 100,000 prostrations, 100,000 Vajrasattva, and 100,000 guru yoga. Now, I was a monk and I was in India, so I had a great environment and such. But I thought, like, why did I do them? I did them because I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be successful in my practice. I wanted my practice to produce the results I wanted, that I hoped for. So even when I, 7 years later, 6 years later, when I got a permission from Lingam Rinpoche to do a 3-year retreat, and that was after I'd done those preliminaries and taken lots and lots of teachings, Lingam Rinpoche told me to redo them all. Everything. 100,000 prostrations, 100,000 Vajrasattva, guru yoga, everything. Because he said, you will be more successful in your retreat if you do that. So I took 2 years to do all of those practices. It wasn't a completely strict retreat, but I did 2 years of that. Then I went into the 2 more years of doing the main retreat of Yamantaka, and another 1.5 years of doing completion stage practices. So I'm just saying, I was very lucky. I had good teachers. I had good environment. I was really fortunate. I hope for all of you that you have similar environments, okay? But I'm just saying is that preliminary practices are not penance. They're accumulation of, let's say, money in your bank account. And if you have a lot of money in your bank account, you never have to worry about how you're going to pay for things. If you have a lot of good merit in your practice and from your preliminary practices, all of the higher practices, Yamantaka, Heruka, or whatever, much more easily successful in producing the results that you'd like to have. Okay. So that concludes today. Thank you very much. So